Moin! And welcome to the links! This video today is the first door repaint in 2019, so it had to be something special. Little did I know how special this would be. I already started this project last year, but got really sick and I couldn't finish her in an adequate time, so I made Feline instead. Then came Christmas and I worked very hard on Venora. And after that, I thought, okay, I can make her the special at the beginning of the new year. I sat down for one day and got sick again. This doll took so much willpower to finish, you have no idea. But it suits her meaning, that I will talk about more at the end. For now, we want to start. As a base, I used this very big monster high doll Calliope. Sadly, I somehow lost the footage of how I removed her head and hair, but I suffered a lot. I have one more big doll, so next time I'll show you the process. The plastic from her head is very different from the one that the smaller dolls have, so it got damaged from the Aceton, and I had to sand it down after removing her factory paint. The struggle continued. I of course also sanded her body down like I always do. Next step was to cut out her eyes. Like always, I sketched them on the plastic and used my well-established method to make the holes. But yes, the plastic was so thick and hard. I have no idea how people can work all the time with these big dolls. I wanted her eyes to be half closed so that she looks very dreamy, but I had so much struggle to get them right. Now that I look back, it is clear that I overworked them a bit, but I'm okay with that, because they still look fine. After a little sanding, it was time for her body. I wanted to try changing the body type for the first time by making her a little thicker. It's not perfectly possible because of the small joints, but I tried my very best. The first step was to cover her in hot glue to save some of my holy epoxy. I started at the upper body with the chest and belly and worked my way around the whole body. When I finished the glue part, I tried to sand it down a little, but the heat melted the glue and I ruined the Dremel head. Well, lesson learned. And onto the knife. After a while I gave up and decided that I smooth it out with epoxy later. That was the time of my first illness, so I stopped working and got back to her this year. Motivated as I was, I started straight with my beloved epoxy. And seriously, I thought that I would need the whole bottle, but I ended up using way less. So I started again with the upper body by just smashing epoxy on the glue and try forming a body. And here was the first difficulty with the joints. I know that a corpulent tummy looks different and now she looks like she's pregnant, but that's okay. I mean, at least I can still move her. For the arms and legs, I decided to also add some epoxy on the joints itself, to make it look better. The only regret I have is the epoxy on the leg joints at the hips, that you will see later. I really had to be careful to not lose the movability, but now they look like strange balls on her hip. Last thing to do was to thicken her face a little more. I smoothed everything out with water as good as I could and sanded everything after drying. The next step was of course to give her a new skin color. I already did this with Venora, but it was just white. Now I wanted a real skin color. I first painted everything white so that I have a good base for the paint, and the next layer was the skin color. The first mixture was way too reddish and dark, so I had to do it again with a lighter color. I added 2 coats of the right tone and dabbed the last one with a sponge to reduce the streaks. And then it was time for the face-up! I sprayed her with 1 layer of Mr. Super Clear and started with my watercolor pencils. This time I also used a little reference image for the makeup, and even though it's not perfect, it's more than usual. I am learning! Her body needed some blushing too, of course. I used a very bright pink for blushing to hide the spots where her original plastic showed through and to give her a strange fleshy color. I gave her a final layer with Mr. Super Clear and waited for it to dry. After that, I gave her a solid coat of Liquitex matte varnish for double protection and this super professional feeling. Now we have her body colored, but she still was missing some eyes. I grabbed my white polymer clay and the silicone mold thing from Amazon. For the mold of the iris, I pressed a wooden ball into the material and baked everything for half an hour. Then it was time for some color. Like usual, I started with a very dark base to ensure I have this dark circle of the iris later. In this case, I directly used black. Normally I use a darker color of the actual iris color. After that, I used a fairly lighter brown that you can't really see in the video. Adding the pupil, and it was time for the glitter! I again used my nail polish for that on this project because it has these beautiful glitter particles that look a little like copper on brown. Perfect for her design. The last thing to do was to add the UV resin. I always just add a small drop, let it cure, use one drop, let it cure, and so on. This time I also pushed the form a little more by adding even more drops, and I have to say, these are the best eyes so far. I'm really happy with the result. Before placing the eyes in the head needed to go back on the body. And oh boy, that wasn't easy. First, I cut down the neck pack a little to have easier access to the eye holes later. Then I went off camera to use my hairdryer for softening the plastic, but it still was such a struggle. And here you have again the proof that it's much better to add epoxy when the head is already back on the body, because it cracked during the process. It's not that bad, but still frustrating. Again, lesson learned. One more thing to do before inserting the eyes was to give her some lashes. Therefore, I just used these normal human-sized ones and cut them a little. Just add a little glue to the eye and place them on the length you want. After that dried, you can bend them and glue the rest inside the head or just cut them. Looking pretty good! Now finally onto the eyes. I learned by making Venora that it's the easiest way to glue eyes inside the head when you use epoxy. I made these circles around the eyes and it was pretty easy to place them without smudging around the glue or so. Little adjustments here and there before I pressed the epoxy really good on the plastic with my clay tool. And that's it. Now time to let it dry. Meanwhile, she needed some hair, so we can work on that. Originally, I wanted to re-rid her head, but the plastic was so hard that it would have taken forever. Moreover, I wanted to try making some locks, and I thought it would be good to start first of trying making some wefts. I used this warm yellow yarn for blonde hair and it turned out exactly the way I wanted it. But let's talk about the process. First, I made a few strands from equal length. And knotted 3 of them together. Then came a pet brush to comb out the yarn. Start at the bottom and brush your way up. I know it's a little slow to prepare every weft separated, but for me it was good to get some practice this way. I used my flatting iron to, yes, flat the yarn, and glued the hair on a piece of plastic. After drying, I had a few wefts that just needed to be curled. For that, I used a small brush with a slippery surface and wrapped the hair around it. Fixing everything with heat and voila! A perfect look! Just do this 100 times and you can fill a giant monster high doll head. For that, I just glued the wefts around the whole head, making my way up to the part line. Looks pretty good, but speaking of the part line, let's take a closer look. I glued the wefts the wrong way on the head to be able to bend them over and hide the glue. But if you just bend them, they will not stay in place and you're not able to work with your flattening iron here, so another solution needed to be found. I saw many artists wrapping foil around the head and just wait for the yarn to set, but I didn't want to ruin my beautiful locks, so I came up with a different idea. I took a spoon and heated it with a flattening iron. Then I just pressed the spoon on the head and ta-da! Perfect part line! And with that, she's nearly done. She just needed a dress that I prepared off camera. My skills are still really poor, but this time I felt much more confident while sewing than before, so I guess I'm getting better. And here she is! I'm so happy that I managed to finish her and I love her hair. Now it's time to talk about the symbolism behind her and why it was so important to get her done. Initially, I thought of her like the personification of winter depression, but she is much more the personification of procrastination. You know, this inner voice telling you to not do things and just relax, even though you shouldn't. I wanted her to look very friendly and innocent from far away, so that it's easy to fall for her and trust her. But coming closer, you can see all her flaws and how unhealthy she is. Moreover, her black hands are very important for her design. It's like tar, very sticky and hard to get off. To emphasize her unhealthy lifestyle, I had to choose between making her very skinny or fat. I decided to at least try to make her corpulent, because I wanted her to look very friendly and cozy from afar. Her dreamy eyes and innocent angel locks give her the perfect harmless look, even though she's actually pretty mean. With her sweet words, she whispers in your ears, stopping you from changing bad habits or improve on things that make you happy. I call her Procrastina. So, how are you doing so far this year? Are you still on your New Year's resolutions or did you already fall for her? Let me know in the comments. But either way, thank you so much for watching. I hope I could have brought you some motivation back to work on your happy life and not let Procrastina enwrap you. Oh, before I forget, the next doll will be the giveaway doll, but I have exam time at university the next week, so it may take a little time until the next video. I'm so sorry. But I'll do my very best to not let you wait for too long. Have a wonderful day, my little lynxes. See you soon. Tschüss!